So because it's after lunch, I thought I'd do something a little different. This is something I do every week with my direct reports, and it does have a cultural impact. So I wanted to let everybody think for about 30 seconds, and I'll share mine first, but share something you're grateful for. Let's lift our spirits up a little bit after lunch. I know everybody wants to take that nap, and we had such good speakers in the morning. So I know we can't take what you're grateful for from everybody, so I'm just gonna ask somebody to raise their hand after we get started, and we'll start with that to get us moving. So I'm grateful for family. My family had some great news this last week. One of my family members has been cancer-free. So that was to see. Makes you feel good, right? This is something to be grateful for. So anyone else, something that you're grateful for?
I am super grateful for the chance to connect, that opportunity to just be in the presence of other people who are trying to do the same thing, connection. Really, really grateful for it here.
Awesome.
I'm going to turn it back to family. I'm grateful for my new granddaughter who's 3 months old.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Maybe we can take one or two more and then we'll get moving.
Hi, I'm grateful that no one was injured or died in the Sioux Falls tornado. I lived there for about 10 years and I'm very familiar with where that hit, so I'm very grateful everyone's okay.
Awesome.
Here we go.
Hi, I'm Wendy Colstock at Capital One, and I'm grateful for today being September 11th that we all still remember.
Amen. Awesome. All right, one more if we have it. If not, okay. So how did that feel, right? Everyone has so much to be grateful for, and being grateful also has a lot to do with culture, right? And appreciating that what you have to travel through and unlocking the power of teams and how our leaders are influential for our culture is a little bit of what I'm going to talk about today from Anthem and a little bit about our journey. I'm not sure if I'm pushing this right or not, but we'll see. There we go. So a little bit about me. Family is the most important thing to me. I have a 24-year-old son who just got engaged a couple of weeks ago. So excited. So excited. I love my soon-to-be daughter-in-law. It's about time. They've been together for 8.5 years, believe that. I was like, when he went to ask the dad for permission, the dad's like, yo, dude, yeah. So we're thankful as a... Exactly. So we're thankful for that as well, but I love to bake. So one of the things about me that just to understand, and not worried about my resume, mind you, you can look at my bio if you even care, but I love to bake. I think baking is something, the smells in the house, the things that it does, the fact that it just relieves stress for me, and I don't eat them. So you wouldn't notice that, but you wouldn't be able to tell that. But anyway, I don't eat the sweets. I've been known to drop off 14 different cakes at Thanksgiving. You can call me if you're interested or you live close. So anyway, that's a little bit about me. Virginia. So let's talk about what we're really here to listen to me talk about, not just myself, but culture and leadership and how they're so critical to an enterprise transformation. And I will share with you that Anthem, our journey with culture has had some pivots. Heard that earlier today. And the need to pivot with culture is a little more of an impediment than pivoting when it comes to other things within your transformation. So I share that with leadership changes and so forth. Our culture has had some pivotal moments that we have now started to try to sort through. So the first thing we had to think about when it comes to establishing a new culture was, why do we need to do this? Why should we change anything? Anthem has a cultural melting pot, if you will. We've been on an acquisition spree for decades, and by the time we brought on all different blues companies and so forth, the one thing we realized is that those cultures were okay. We kind of left everything alone. When we started doing and realizing that, we are industry. We have so much disruption in it as it is because it's healthcare. And I probably should have mentioned that if you're not familiar with Anthem. We are a healthcare organization with about 70,000 employees. And we have to do better to be competitive. We're becoming a dinosaur. We can't afford to be irrelevant. So in order to be relevant, you have to set a vision that people want to rally around in a culture that people can be attracted to. And in this day of competitive landscape for good people, right? People who have passion, people who want to make change and be a part of it, you really have to think about that inspirational vision. So, and it's the heart of our transformation, right? A little bit about our journey, how we got started. First thing we did was I was voluntold, Sheri, you need to go do Agile transformation for Anthem. And we're gonna, and at that time I didn't know how to spell Agile, just gonna say, you know, it was very foreign. So we started up standing up a center of excellence, if you will, that said, hey, we're gonna create these rails and we're gonna create some consistency. And all that consistency was necessary in order to give people something that they could latch onto to say, what does it mean for me to go here? We started to introduce the Lean Agile mindset. That's where culture first began for us to realize just how mixed our culture was and how much we appreciated all the variety and that you can have diversity in all those things, but culturally you needed to be able to lead people through and people needed to rally around what your mission, what you were trying to do, improve your healthcare in your community. Those kinds of things were important. So play it forward. We went through our safe adoption. We then leaned into our DevOps enablement. That was probably later than it should have been. We're just starting in 2020 to look at lean portfolio management, so very interested with our speeches this morning about the LPMs. And Sally's been out and actually started our journey with us this year to figure out how we get there with one of our portfolios next year. And fixed funding, everybody's talked about funding. Boy, talk about a cultural change. Accounting's black and white, right? That's the way it works. So they really don't want to change to fixed funding. Oops. All right. One of the things that was important about our enterprise agility centers of excellence, as I mentioned, was that it was setting the principles and some of the standards for people to think about. It also started the introduction to our leaders about how do we embrace this lean agile mindset? What does that mean? And so the centers of excellence started on our journey of how we help people understand the rails, if you will. Why is DevOps important? We're actually embarking on our piece of DevOps where people are starting, our business is starting to understand that the pipeline that you need to actually be effective is really important. So milestone for us to get through that, but most of the time it's very foreign to them. But when they see the efficiency, it certainly adds to our goals. And the one thing we experienced a lot at Anthem, and I don't know how many of you experience it in your own organizations, but customer abrasion for us has been hard. I mean, we are trying to deliver new things. We're trying to get out there and be very customer focused so that we have, you know, new ideas on how to manage healthcare and how to improve those costs. But the abrasion factor, when you don't do something, you don't pay someone's claim right? Has everybody ever had a problem with their claims? Well, that creates that abrasion. And so overcoming that as an organization is difficult too. Again, some of the culture you want to set for yourself. So what did we do? So I am happy to say that we instituted agility as one of our core values across our organization. So that was a milestone that came directly from our CEO that's been monumental in helping people. Now the actual terminology of agility is part of our core. And although we have a lot of other great core values, leadership, community, integrity, diversity, the agility one was important to all of us who have been on the journey for several years, and this just started this year for us. So what did we do after we made agility one of our core values? We took it on what we call take it to the road. So a road show, if you will, about how do you, all of our people and associates, how do they need to embrace culture? What does agility mean as a core value to them? And how do we want them to view that core value and actually use it and enable the rest of the organization? So we took it to the road. We are all over the United States. So we took it to the road, including things like Dish on DevOps to help them understand how we tie that culture to DevOps and not be afraid. DevOps seems like a technical term. The next thing we did was we mobilized what we call change champions. These change champions we mobilized across the organization. We actually set up change champion road shows, if you will, at each of our locations where they welcomed in all the associates and they talked about Agile, agility, DevOps, and how that is part of our culture going forward in order to achieve the core values we've set for ourselves. Those change champions are still in place today. We've actually grown that beyond just what we call certain change champions. We're at like, hundreds of them across our organization in each of their facilities. The next thing we did for culture was we started to really tip the scale on education. How do we educate people and empower them to think about learning, becoming a learning culture and a learning environment? The only way you can do that is if you're open to allowing them to invest some of their time in becoming educated and learning. What is Agile? What is agility? How does that impact my culture? How do I think about my community? How do I think about my members? So we incorporated some of our team members, and we've trained about 14,000 people. Now we're 70,000 large, so that's not nearly, it's a tip of the iceberg for us. But the importance of that was the company and the leaders started to recognize themselves the importance of being educated on what you need to do. We're actually now starting culture workshops that have started all the way at the top and are being disseminated down through our organization, and they're 2 days. And it's mandatory everybody spend the 2 days. So huge accomplishment to actually make culture and do a change for culture within a big organization. The other thing we've done is we've evolved. We are now global. We have 2 captives in India, one in Hyderabad and one in Bangalore. And we have been partnering with them. We actually have set up a Center of Excellence Light, and they are actually our associate base that is now taking, and we are blending those cultures and learning a lot about our associates in India and how they need to be reflected as part of our culture. And it's been a really great journey to have a captive. And I don't know anybody else in here have captives over in other countries? So a few, and I will tell you, and after you start your cultural journey and you institute something that is across the other, it's across the outside of the United States, it becomes really important that you recognize the importance and the values that those cultures have and how you bring them together into one culture. So again, that's a second tier of our journey we're just starting to dive through, but such an incredible experience to have been there. The people are awesome. My team is awesome there, so it's a great experience. When we started down the culture journey, this is a little bit of then management says, hey, can you tell me where we are? How are we doing? How do we compare to other places? Well, we've reorganized a lot, so we've had a lot of step back, move forward, step back, move forward. So we had an outside company come in, and we said, why don't you assess us compared to other organizations? And they said, well, I think Anthem could fly in 1 to 3 years. And I thought, obviously, I hired the wrong outside company because there was just no way that we were flying in 1 to 3 years. But, when you look at how, and so that was one of the things that was notable for my leadership was, look, our journey is our journey. And when we start to talk about culture and transformation, we have to own it. And it's only about ours. We can't compare ourselves on a track of where do you think you are and where do you fit in with all kinds of other organizations. So that was a big learning experience for my leadership because they're so used to, and this is, and I don't know if I have Gartner friends out there or not, but they're so used to looking at themselves on a scale, right? What does Gartner say that I need to be at? Because I need to be in that quadrant in order to be okay. So taking the quadrants out of the equation has been really difficult for my leadership because they always want to be in that awesome quadrant. They don't even look at tools sometimes if they're not in a certain quadrant, right? So pivotal time, my point with this slide is to let you know you need to own your culture and transformation. It is not a comparison. Comparing ourselves to any other organization is fruitless. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit now about measures. I heard a lot about that this morning, about how we measure our success and the metrics being so important. So I want to talk in this light of how measuring is also important for your cultural transformation, because people need to rally around. Everybody thinks about data, right? Everybody thinks about data points and information from it and so forth. So in order to measure yourselves, you need to set some things and establish some grounds that people can wrap their heads around. And so one of the things that, and it hurts someone mention about performance, performance measurements, and how we're still, at least at Anthem, in a space of individual performance measurements. Now, we do measure our team, especially with Agility Health Radar and the happiness. We even have something we've implemented called Vitals, which is all these emojis that we've launched that says, click how you feel today. and we use that information to see, everybody's happy on Fridays, by the way. We figured that was probably, that was a good thing. So one of the things we did do, though, because of the need for that performance metric and people to feel like, okay, this Agile stuff is great, but at the end of the day, if you're not going to put it in my performance review, I'm not sure how I can care about it. So in addition to making agility one of our core values, we actually introduced 3 metrics towards agility, adoption, quality, and adhering to standards within every person's performance review. So one of the things that now, you can imagine, you should have seen the first time we've been presenting these metrics for over a year. As soon as we put it in the performance review, everybody wanted to sit down and tell you, I don't think that data's right. Maybe you should have thought about it a year ago, but hey, we're going to keep going with the fact that they're still relevant and helping people understand. It's been pretty monumental for us to have that part of the performance review, because now people can say, I'm on it, I want to adopt Agile, I want to be a part of it. And then we have to get to good practices. There's a lot more to it, but in a nutshell, there's some accountability for saying it impacts me, and I want to make sure that I don't negatively impact what's going on around me. Foundational metrics, not going to talk a lot about these, but these are the additional things that we measure, not part of the performance evaluation, but we do want to make sure we stay close to measuring things, good things, to help us enable Agile, DevOps, and quality across our org. So why is all of that important? It's important because at the team level, as we start thinking about the individual performance, and at the team level, with our Agility Health Radar assessments and the identification of our growth items, we have really started to build out and see people knocking down the walls of organizational impediments. We have now taken our information, we actually rolled it up to themes so that we can see across the many teams in our arts, and we have about 500 teams and about 40 arts. So across those, we wanted to see if there were consistent themes, whether it be leadership issues, which there are, plenty of those, and all of the things that we needed to address within those growth items. And then we do monitor stale growth items. If it's not important enough to you to work on it, then maybe it's not something that you would consider a growth item you need to do. But if someone else felt it was important and it made a higher priority on their growth item, we would ask, what is the difference, right? So we started having those conversations as well, and I think that's a good thing. So let's talk a little bit about process, people, the obstacles, and the challenges. And so, and this I started thinking about, well, what does transform mean? And so I'm a word person, so I like the meanings of words, so I started Googling, well, what does this mean? And I started looking it up, and it's like, transform has a biblical definition, it has definitions in math, it has definitions, so it has all these layers, and I started thinking, wow. So I started looking up some references, and the one reference I thought that caught my eye was the caterpillar. So picture this, and think about this as your people. You're this caterpillar, you got all these awesome legs, for days, and you're on this tree, and you're so happy. You just want to eat leaves, you want to get fat, you don't want to do anything else. You go to sleep one night, you wake up, and you're like, oh my God, what's these things on my back? It's wings. Fall off the tree that you love so much, you're trying to figure out, I know I can use these things, I've got to fly. And when you get up and fly, you see these other trees and other things that you need to get to, and you're beautiful. You're no longer that fat caterpillar, you're a beautiful butterfly. So I started to think to myself, well, what does that really mean when you're trying to transform something? And what does it mean to our associates? There's that moment of fear when you move from the caterpillar to the butterfly. You're not quite sure what's happening to you. And you've got that space. And we as leaders need to understand and respect that culturally transforming our people is internal for them, not just external. So when I say that the caterpillar moves into the butterfly, a lot of that is visual. And so I'll talk a little bit about the visual perspective of Anthem's culture. Visually, we think we're beautiful. We're the butterfly. And I think the butterfly is beautiful. But as a leader, I aspire to be the butterfly. Not just be beautiful, but be the butterfly. I want, and my people, they have a passion. Once you get them past the fear of why did I change or have to change, then you've got to help them understand that just looking the look, we call it talking the talk versus walking the walk, which is what we share with our leaders. You have to think about, I don't want to just look beautiful. I want to be beautiful. I want my members to say Anthem is beautiful. They're beautiful to the core, not just because they have beautiful wings or they have a beautiful color scheme with the blues. None of those things are really relevant when you dig deep and you think about how you transform culture. Transforming truly is transformational. You can't transform by just visually seeing it. You can only transform by being it. So my challenge to all of you as leaders is don't be just beautiful. Be the butterfly. The heart, the passion, carry that forward with you as part of what you need to lead by example, because that's what your people, I know that's what my people value. They want to see the truth. They want you to lead with your whole self and not just say, well, we got to go do this over here. That's one more culture thing somebody's throwing at us. That's the picture. So if I had to leave you with anything, be the butterfly. Don't just look like the butterfly. That's it for me.